There's something genuinely appealing about the deli counter that prepackaged cold cuts simply cannot replicate. Watching meat get sliced to order, knowing it is fresh rather than sitting in a sealed package since the week before, and being able to ask for exactly the thickness you want, are all part of what makes the experience worth the wait. But that freshness comes with a trade-off that most shoppers have never considered. Freshly sliced deli meat requires equipment that must be cleaned and maintained on a rigorous schedule. And when those practices fall short, the consequences can be serious. The bacterial threat at the center of this story is Listeria monocytogenes. And understanding how it spreads in the deli environment, what the research shows about how common the problem actually is, and what visible signs can help an observant shopper assess a deli's practices before buying, gives a clearer picture of a risk that is easy to miss but important to understand. Why Listeria and deli meat are particularly connected. Listeria monocytogenes causes what is known as listeriosis, a foodborne illness that the CDC identifies as the third leading cause of foodborne illness deaths in the United States each year. That ranking alone makes it worth taking seriously. What makes the deli environment specifically concerning is that meats sliced and packaged at retail delis represent the major source of listeriosis illnesses attributed to deli meat overall, according to the CDC. This is not a coincidence. Several features of the deli environment make it unusually hospitable to listeria compared to other food settings. Unlike many pathogens that struggle in cold environments, Listeria monocytogenes can survive and even grow at refrigerator temperatures. This means that cold storage, which provides a meaningful safety buffer against bacteria like Salmonella, does not stop Listeria from proliferating once it has established itself on a surface or in a piece of equipment. The bacteria is particularly adept at forming what are called biofilms, thin protective layers that adhere to surfaces and are resistant to standard cleaning methods. Once a biofilm establishes itself in the hard-to-reach spaces of a meat slicer, eliminating it becomes significantly more difficult than preventing it in the first place. The most important red flag, the condition of the meat slicer. The FDA recommends that deli meat slicers be inspected for damage every 4 hours during operation. That recommendation exists because damaged slicers present a food safety risk that goes beyond ordinary cleaning and maintenance. When seals, gaskets, and other components of the slicer become degraded, small gaps and spaces form that trap debris, moisture, and meat residue. These spaces cannot be adequately cleaned or sanitized under normal cleaning conditions, meaning that even a staff member following the cleaning protocol correctly cannot eliminate contamination risk if the machine itself is in poor condition. A study conducted by the CDC found that 3 in 5 dealers had damaged meat slicers. That figure is worth sitting with for a moment. 3 out of every 5 delis examined had equipment in a condition that the FDA identifies as a primary food safety red flag. For a shopper at the counter, a visibly damaged slicer, one with cracked housing, degraded seals, or components that appear worn or poorly maintained, is the clearest single indicator that the deli may have food safety vulnerabilities that extend beyond what is visible. The second red flag: cleaning frequency. The FDA's guidelines specify that deli slicers should be cleaned thoroughly every 4 hours to prevent the buildup of food soil and oils that create ideal conditions for bacterial growth. The same CDC study that found widespread equipment damage also found that only about half of the delis examined complied with this cleaning frequency requirement. That means at any given deli, there is roughly a coin flip chance that the slicer has not been cleaned within the recommended window. For a shopper, the visual indicator here is visible accumulation. A slicer with obvious grease buildup, meat residue, or food debris clinging to its surfaces is one that has not been cleaned recently or adequately. This is a red flag that does not require any specialized knowledge to identify. A clean slicer should look clean. A slicer that has been in continuous use for several hours without cleaning will show it. What green flags look like. Understanding the red flags is only half of the picture. There are also positive indicators that a deli takes food safety seriously and has systems in place to maintain standards consistently. Food hygiene accreditation and food safety certificates displayed prominently tell a shopper that the establishment has been inspected and found compliant. These certifications are only maintained through ongoing adherence to safety protocols, so their presence signals more than just a one-time passing grade. Cleaning and maintenance schedules posted visibly near the meat slicer indicate that an FDA-approved routine is formally in place and visible to all staff. A schedule on the wall does not guarantee compliance, but it does suggest that management has structured the operation around documented protocols rather than relying on informal memory and judgment. For regular customers, paying attention to the state of the equipment across multiple visits over time provides the most reliable picture of how consistently a deli follows its own standards. A slicer that is consistently clean across many visits reflects genuine operational discipline. A slicer that is occasionally clean and occasionally visibly dirty reflects inconsistent practice, which from a food safety standpoint is nearly as concerning as consistently poor hygiene. The broader context, what this means for how you buy deli meat. None of this means that freshly sliced deli meat is inherently dangerous or that the risk of listeriosis from a typical deli visit is high in absolute terms. The risk exists on a spectrum, and most delis operate without causing illness most of the time. But the research showing that 3 in 5 delis had damaged slicers, and that roughly half did not meet cleaning frequency guidelines, suggests that the margin for error in the deli environment is narrower than many shoppers assume, and that visible equipment condition is a genuinely useful proxy for overall food safety culture. The shopper who takes 30 seconds to look at the slicer before ordering, who notices whether it appears clean and well-maintained, and who is aware that damaged equipment is the primary structural red flag identified by food safety authorities, is in a meaningfully better position than the shopper who never considers these questions. Prepackaged deli meat eliminates the equipment variable entirely, which is a real food safety advantage, even if the product feels less fresh. For those who prefer the deli counter experience, a brief visual assessment before ordering is a low-effort habit with genuine protective value. It is also worth noting that the people most vulnerable to serious listeriosis outcomes are not the general population as a whole. Pregnant women, older adults, and people with weakened immune systems face significantly higher risk of severe illness from listeria infection. For these groups, the state of a deli's equipment and cleaning practices carries real consequences. Opting for packaged alternatives when the visible evidence at the counter is not reassuring is a practical form of self-protection that costs nothing.